All right, so today we're really diving deep into Fionna.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. We're talking swordsmanship, beauty, nobility.
The whole package.
Yeah, really, the whole package. But you know how we do it here? We really like to go beyond just kind of the surface level stuff. And with Fionna and the sources we've got lined up, there are so many like interesting contradictions there. It really makes you think.
Yeah, she's a very intriguing figure for sure. Um, when you think about kind of the typical image of a deity, especially one associated with beauty and grace,
Right.
she really kind of breaks the mold.
Yeah, you see words like blunt and brash, even like stubborn used to describe her, and you're like, wait a minute.
It's not what you expect.
It's not what you expect. It's not like, oh, here comes the goddess of like diplomacy and tact. So how do we kind of reconcile those two seemingly like opposing sides of her?
Right. Well, it's interesting to think, were those contradictions intentional?
Yeah.
Like, were they put there in the, original creation of this figure to make her more well-rounded and complex?
Oh, interesting.
Some scholars argue that her bluntness, for example, can actually be seen as a sign of her honesty, her dedication to her craft. Like she sees right through any pretense, especially when it comes to swordplay.
Yeah, there's no time for BS.
No sugarcoating allowed.
It's like, just give it to me straight.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which I kind of admire in a way. I mean,
For sure.
there's a certain strength in that, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that even ties into what some might perceive as snobbishness in her character. It could be seen less as arrogance and more about, holding herself and others to a really high standard.
Oh, I like that.
Right. Like it's not enough to just be competent. You have to strive for excellence, for mastery.
Yeah, so it's less about I'm better than you. It's more about you can be better.
Exactly.
Like, I like that take a lot better.
It adds a whole other dimension, I think.
Yeah, it's like you might not always love her methods, but you can't deny her commitment to excellence.
Exactly. And that's what I think makes exploring these contradictions so rewarding, because it challenges us to look beyond just those first impressions.
Yeah.
And consider, the motivations, the nuances that make a character who they are, whether it's a deity or someone we encounter in our everyday life.
I like that a lot. Okay, so we've talked about Fionna and all these like interesting contradictions, but I kind of want to get into how she's usually pictured,
Yeah.
Because the sources describe her as this like really striking red-haired elven woman, and she's often in, what you probably call swashbuckler garb.
Right.
Flowing fabrics, maybe a little bit of leather, definitely a sword or two, like strapped on, ready for anything.
That's a look.
Yeah.
And it really works, I think, When you think about her, like we were just talking about the elegance and the fierceness, and obviously her association with beauty, grace, and then also being this incredible warrior.
For sure. But it's interesting, though, because when you actually look at what the source material says about Fionna as a patron of beauty, it's clearly not just about, like, physical appearance, right?
Oh, absolutely not. No, no, no. For Fionna, beauty's all about mastery.
Okay.
It's about the dedication and discipline that it takes to really excel at any craft. It's not even necessarily about, wielding a blade or any kind of combat. It could be like crafting a stunning piece of art,
Interesting.
or mastering a really difficult piece of music. Anything, it's that pursuit of perfection and finding elegance in like every single movement.
So how does that actually manifest, though? Like, give me an example. What does that look like in action, especially when we talk about, like, Fiona's followers?
We'll take the way that Fionites approach combat.
Okay.
Remember how it was mentioned that they actually refer to battle as the dance?
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's a perfect example. Because it's not just about, hacking and slashing. It's about precision. It's about timing. It's about strategy. Every move is deliberate. It flows into the next, it really does become almost like this performance, this display of skill that's been honed through,
Wow.
years of really, really intense training.
So it's less about, like, brute force and more about that elegance and control we were just talking about.
Exactly.
So it's almost like you'd see, like, a really beautiful dance in a royal court, but with swords.
There you go.
Okay.
I like that visual.
And then this idea of kind of, this beauty and mastery, it ties directly into her whole philosophy of oneness, this idea that, your weapon becomes like an extension of yourself. Right, we touched on that a little bit earlier, and that's where I think it gets really interesting, because it's not just like, oh, you're physically capable. It's like this whole other level of connection. It's like you and the weapon become one. But how does that actually work in practice? Like, what does it take to actually achieve that?
Well, it's described as this almost like incredible state of harmony between the warrior and their blade.
Okay.
And I think the best way I could probably describe it is imagine like two dancers moving in perfect sync with each other,
Right.
anticipating each other's steps.
Yeah.
There's no hesitation, there's no wasted movement. It's just this like pure, almost instinctive flow.
Wow.
And it's said that, a Fionite who actually achieves this oneness can react, like in the blink of an eye. Their attacks are practically impossible to predict.
It's like pushing past your limits to that, like, next level.
Yeah, constantly striving for that perfect balance.
Mm.
And it's something that, Fionites dedicate their lives to. It requires immense mental and spiritual discipline, not just physical prowess. It's really fascinating stuff.
It really is. And, when we talk about their traditions, their holy day sounds incredible. It's celebrated on the last day of spring, which I feel like is really fitting for a goddess who's associated with beauty and renewal.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a time when, Fionites from all different walks of life, they come together to honor her. They have these incredible sparring contests, demonstrations of skill, and it's really about pushing each other to their limits in this like really friendly but competitive environment.
It sounds amazing. It's like a big festival, but with swords.
Exactly. Imagine the energy,
Yeah.
the clang of the blades, the bright colors of everybody's attire. It must be quite the spectacle to behold.
It really must. And it's not just, showing off. They also bestow these really, like, prestigious titles to the most skilled among them.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Blade Dancer and Master Blade Dancer, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Precisely. And those titles, they represent years, sometimes decades, of like serious dedication to her teachings. And it's not even just about, exceptional skill. At that point, it's a deep understanding of her philosophy. It's mastery of not just the body, but the mind as well.
It really speaks to kind of what they value.
Absolutely.
That discipline, perseverance, that constant, like, striving to be better. It's really cool. It makes you think, like, what happens when they reach kind of the peak of what they can do in this life?
Right. Well, that's where, we get into kind of the realm of legends.
Here comes.
Because the sources mention this place called the Hall, which is Fionna's legendary training ground. And it's said to be located in the outer plane of Yisgard.
Okay.
And it's this place of, breathtaking beauty and just like unparalleled opportunity for those who are fortunate enough to,
To train there.
to train there.
To
Exactly.
be granted entry.
After death.
Wait, so they just...
Keep training for eternity.
That is the legend.
That only the most skilled and devoted warriors are worthy of entering this hall where they can, continue to train for all time, honing their skills against the best of the best. Some even say that Fionna herself resides there and, will even test her followers against her own abilities.
That's incredible. I need to know more about this. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into Fionna, but I have to say, I'm kind of in awe of this goddess.
Yeah.
She's got grace, she's got power, she really challenges us to think differently about appearances, about dedication, about mastery.
Inspiring, isn't it?
It really is. And, it makes you think, what would I want to strive for eternity, if I had the chance?
What aspect of your craft would you take to that hall?
Exactly, and I think that's something really for us all to think about. So thank you for joining us for this deep dive, and until next time.